Log 1001. My name is Professor Phyllis Galen. I graduated from the University of Darkholme 653 years ago. I specialized in interplanar mechanics and graduated with distinction and honors. Since then, I have worked at various facilities, both within and without the Underdark, with my primary goal being to increase the understanding of how interplanar travel manifests within Eladrin. My work has been published in accredited journals 870 times, and my discoveries have pushed the boundaries of scientific understanding in this area beyond that of any of my predecessors. Now, I am not usually one to cite my own abilities and achievements. Self-aggrandizing is a habit of my peers that I abhor, but I feel it is necessary here to fully express my frustration. It is not uncommon for my work to be interrupted, disrupted, or even destroyed. Many times this has been through outside influences, chiefly ethics boards and ignorant adventuring parties who believe themselves to be heroes. Other times, I admit, my downfall has been of my own making. If you are familiar with the experiments that took place on the Temple of Sed, named St. Gideon's Conclave, that was a disaster for which I take full responsibility. However, in my present circumstances, I find myself wedged into an unwinnable situation. My studies on interplanar mechanics are being perverted or ignored by those with little understanding of the intricacies of the field. I was hired by one Stephen Mazakin, known by some as the Splinter King. He funded my research with the intention of using it to create soldiers capable of interplanar travel. The results were not what he desired, and I told him it would be so. This kind of weaponization of my field requires decades of refinement, and he demanded it be done in mere weeks. However, I was able to provide Mazakin with other avenues of research. With the help of the kobold engineer Dr. Tinkertop, I was able to use my knowledge of the planes of fire, water, and darkness to produce weapons that aided in his ascension to the throne. Dr. Tinkertop and I encouraged the king to assemble an elite group of the best scientific and engineering minds within the Underdark, a kind of think tank. Our combined efforts have reshaped much of Underdark society under the Splinter King. Although war continues to rage, rebellions and counterinsurgencies are common, we remain in power. This, you might imagine, would be an ideal situation for one such as myself, who has striven for more independence and freedom to pursue my research. Alas, I remain at the whims of the Splinter King. The elite was formed to produce weapons that would end this war. We soon saw that this was futile and changed the direction of our research into the survival of our races. A degenerative medical condition, cerebrum nebula, more commonly called brain fog, has been spreading amongst the population. Mazakin himself appears to have contracted it. I wrote a paper 342 years ago discussing the interplay of mental ability and connection to planar transference. As such, the king demanded I find a cure using my knowledge of the subject. Despite my objections, he insisted. Dr. Tinkertop and I have spent the past few months debating an approach that will satisfy the king, but have so far been unsuccessful. For now, we shall be taking some of the patients who have shown signs of the condition and subject them to testing. Once we have a better understanding of how it works and interacts with the patient's brain, we shall be able to make better plans. I have with me a team of trusted scientists, as well as my assistant in Luha. She has been most useful compared to my previous dog's body. She may even have the cognitive abilities necessary to form rational thoughts. This remains to be seen, though. For now, we set forth to our work. May the work continue. Signed, Professor Phyllis Galen. Log 1401. News has reached us of Lolthian spies captured entering the city, carrying shields made from mushrooms. These mushrooms grow fast and self-repair the shields. After some study, we believe these to be a new genus of neomycelia, sometimes called the necrospore. Some context for the uninitiated. According to the legend, when the goddess Lolth chose followers from among the Eladrin to join her, she granted them a mote of the neomycelia, which germinated within the blood, turning our skin purple and our souls dark. This is, of course, utter nonsense. I suspect rather that there was a tribe of Eladrin who came to live in the Underdark and so were exposed to the necrospore, a fungus native to the Underdark, well known to be durable and quite the nuisance to any biosphere. Over the generations, the bodies would have adapted to metabolize the fungus, making it part of our biology. My research suggests that there is indeed a trace within drow bone marrow that bears a remarkable resemblance to naturally forming necrospore. This adaptation has granted our people tremendous strength, agility, and has made us far more able to acclimatize to the Underdark than our Eladrin brethren. However, a side effect seems to be that the presence of the necrospore within our biology is what blocks us from using the plane-shifting abilities that the Eladrin lord over us. I have studied the biology of Eladrin for many years, young and old. Their blood is virtually identical. The only difference is that within the bone marrow of drow children, traces of the spore are created and perpetuated. I have so far been unable to find a way to reverse it. For years, I believed that the secret lay within the Eladrin children, that they might hold within their bones the secret to creating the antibodies that would fight off the spore. Or perhaps the flow of arcane energy through their bodies at the moment of plane shifting might reveal exactly how the spore blocks us. My research has, thus far, been inconclusive. The spore brings with it another side effect that has been of much deeper concern to the leadership of the Underdark for the past decade or so. This new strain developed by the Lolthites is controllable. However, the spores, when breathed in, gather within the body and cause a sickness which manifests with symptoms of cerebrum nebula, as well as tiredness, feeble joints, and eventually physical mutation. It would appear that we have discovered the cause of our king's maladies. Dr. Tinkertop has rejected the idea of a cure and prefers to seek instead to accelerate the mutations to their logical conclusion. Upon seeing what we would become, our research has turned instead to attempting to save the Underdark peoples from this fate by rescuing their souls. If the bodies are destined to be ravaged by this fungal infection, the soul may yet be preserved, but it must be done swiftly. Necromancers know of ways to preserve the soul, but they require years of preparation and many spells. We do not have years. Certainly not for each individual within our city alone. While Tinkertop has given in to the fungus, I remain unconvinced that there is no cure. For every ailment, there is a cause, and every cause may be counteracted, as Gelthin's law states. It is simply a matter of understanding the causes, how they interact, and learning to counter them, much like the counterspell. In my own time, using my own resources, I have continued to look for new ways that a cure might be found. My assistant is showing herself to be most useful at convincing Tinkertop that I think like he does. She is able to act with the enthusiasm of his devotees, but I know her true loyalty lies with me. Signed, Professor Phyllis Galen. Log 1456. The king has once again invited me to join one of his ridiculous banquets. I abhor these events as they take me away from my important work. However, failing to show up often results in less interest being taken in my work, and as such, less funding. Tinkertop has managed to corner the market, as they say, in this regard. Inluha has offered to go in my stead. Perhaps an illusion spell would make her look like me, and so keep them off my back? Regardless, the painful slowness in the work has only been exacerbated by these nonsensical social occasions. Signed, Professor Phyllis Galen. Log 1500. We have studied the condition thoroughly, with the equipment available for several months, and our progress is slow. We now know the way it works with some better clarity. It causes the very tissue of the brain to degrade, fuse, and then decay. The fungus grows, replacing the brain matter, the flesh, and finally, the very soul. Patient 76 has shown a 13% decrease in brain capacity within the last year. When I removed the brain from the skull, the patient was still able to protest, though weakly. I observed the white matter within the brain turning black and rotting, even as it was placed within a container of preserving fluid. The patient died within 4 hours. I have asked Inluha to reach out to arcane practitioners who specialize in necromancy to consult on this issue. What kind of spell would have this very targeted rotting effect? It is not unusual for a touch-based spell of the necromantic variety to cause the subject to rot from that touch point. But the brain, encased within a protective skull, seems far removed from such spells. No other rot has been observed in the patient's pre-mortem. Signed, Professor Phyllis Galen. Log 1521. At last, a response to Inluha's inquiries. A wizard from the Wretched Isles has agreed to allow my assistant access to their deep catacombs, wherein there is a wealth of knowledge from some of the first necromancers. These pioneering arcanists began their studies as a purely medical field, so I am expecting more reliable notations from them, less shrouded in the unnecessary obfuscation and cryptic language of later necromancers. I have found my assistant to be a useful sounding board for my speculations around the work. She listens well and keeps quiet until called upon to voice opinions and ideas. This suits me well. If only other Eladrin were quite so pliable. She has come a long way since I first found her. A fledgling in the twilight plane, clinging to a pale shadow of herself. Separating her from this alabaster reflection took a considerable amount of effort. She made at least 5 attempts to free it from my workshops. But once she has been given tasks, promised liberation, and allowed to observe my work, she began to see its value. When the Paladins of Corellon raided my laboratory some 20 years ago, the subject, codenamed Drobel, was killed in the fighting along with the other subjects. This goes further to show that those who call us evil are themselves lacking in respect for life and science. So much work was lost that day, but as I managed to help in Luha escape, she has since become one of my closest confidants. I look forward to her success. Signed, Professor Phyllis Galen. Log 2011. Iluha has returned from her expedition to the wretched isle with a plethora of gold glass. The substance is close to crystal, but its golden hue is derived from its origins in the astral plane. While on the return journey, she conducted some rudimentary experiments and informed me of the strange effects these stones can be compelled to have. When attuned, it appears that an arcane practitioner may use these in the creation of a magic jar that can last well beyond its usual capacity. It is, however, somewhat delicate and requires some form of protection. The jar is imperfect, however, and cannot contain a complete soul without breaking. Dr. Tinkertop has suggested fragmented souls may bypass this unfortunate reality. He fails to see that this, of course, negates the very purpose for which we have striven thus far. I shall take my concerns to the elite more widely. My voice is still respected amongst them. Signed, Professor Phyllis Galen. Log 4010. Experiments with the soul siphon have provided far more data than I know what to do with. Dr. Tinkertop's insight into this mechanism are, I admit, brilliant. Though I confess to being suspicious of where he acquired it, he does not strike me as the kind to have access to this level of arcane power. Nevertheless, Luha and I have spent several days observing and recording results from numerous experiments with the devices. From what I have seen, the crystalline structure of the siphon draws on the astral plane, which acts as a magnet to the soul inhabiting any living creature. This is not unlike the spell known as a magic jar. However, it appears to lock the soul particulate within it, rather than containing the entirety of it. To break a soul down into portions and then to store those portions within, it is a level of arcane achievement I have not witnessed before. While a fully complete soul from a singular individual cannot be contained within the crystalline structure, siphoning off the elements that cause disruption, replacing them with a patchwork of other, less active souls, the missing pieces can be sewn in a new form. A patchwork soul that is not quite the original person, but something else entirely. A new kind of being. Dr. Ronsom has voiced some concerns, pointing out that this negates our purpose. Ronsom is an emotional fellow and should be ignored. However, Luha appeared to agree with his conclusions. Though I showed nothing at the time, this concerned me, as Luha's scientific abilities are quickly catching up with my own. If she considers it worth approaching with caution, the caution may well be called for. Signed, Professor Phyllis Galen. Log 4420. The bunker was attacked. I myself was injured in the exchange of fire, but Inluha is tending to my wounds. I cannot begin to express my gratitude. I shall refrain, for I do not wish her to become dependent upon my positive reinforcement. She must do the work for its own sake. I will deliver a full report soon. For now, I must recover. Signed, Professor Phyllis Galen. Log 5180. I have seen Dr. Tinkertop's Mark I travel machine, and now I see what he is planning. That kobold may be an excellent engineer, but his ability to understand the way in which science works more broadly is lacking. His machine has the potential to win the war, I agree. However, he has programmed the souls within to be without conscience, without mercy, pity, or any sense of cooperation with others. The pursuit of science relies upon these things, as I have learned all too late in life. These creatures, these monsters, will undoubtedly turn on all of us as soon as the war is won. And Tinkertop simply will not see it. The truth is right before his eyes, and he will not see it. I can only hope that others will see as I do. I pray that it is not too late. Inlua and I are prepared to escape, if necessary. My own research may continue another day. If I could only remember where I left my notes. Where are they? Inluha will know. Where is that girl? This log has drained me. I will update again soon. Signed, Professor Phyllis Galen. Log 5993. I don't know where I am. The world is full of fog. Spores in the air. Fog. What was I doing? What was I saying? Something about fog. Brains. Oh, I don't recall. Where am I? Who are you? Professor, it's me, your assistant, Inluha. Inluha? Yes. You are my assistant, and you assist me to do what? I help you with your science, Professor. Your research. Of course, I remember now. It's all coming back to me. What are we researching again? You know, this may be a conversation for another day. Let's get you to bed, Professor. Bed? What is bed? What is a bed? Oh, dear God.